sounds like your man has a doppelganger, from the German doppelganger. The myth is, if it's a myth, is that everyone in the world has an identical double. Not a twin, no sir. A non-biological double. The Egyptians call it a ka, the Norwegians a vardaja, the Finns an etiainen, the Swiss a dark uncle, fetch from the Old Irish. Find that word quite fetching, don't you? It is a primitive construct used to explain bipolar disorder or schizophrenia or just the everyday struggle between the id and superego. I can tell you what day May 1st lands on 204 years from now, faster than any computer on Earth. And I can not only recite the lyrics of every rock and roll song written from 1954 to the present day, but I can tell you which Billboard chart position they were in week to week.
I call it the untethering.
Enter the stars. Doppelgangers. Are they real? We talked about DNA and how the DNA of every child in the U.S. is being stored after birth, sometimes indefinitely, and how the U.S. military was caught doing genetic experiments on this baby DNA. The montage you just saw was from the series The Outsider, in which a doppelganger goes on a murder spree, impersonating different people. And then in the film Us, which is the second part of the montage that you just saw, the entire planet meets their doppelganger. They come out of the ground. Let's watch this next montage here on Us.
I call it the untethering.
Now, they're held together by this invisible thread. And in the film Us, they call it the tethering, the untethering. And the goal of these doppelgangers that come from beneath the ground is to sever the tie between their doppelganger. Here in this scene, you see he hits his own head, and then his clone or his doppelganger feels the same effect. You also notice these scissors, these golden scissors that they carry around, and this is the weapon of choice of the dark side doppelgangers. Now, what do these golden scissors mean? We're going to get into that in the show here. I believe this is a reference to gene editing. Why do I say that? Because this is what is described as gene editing. Now, they're able to cut and paste, so to speak, different parts of the genome to create whatever they want. Here's some images, just typing in the word golden scissors and genes. Okay, and as you can see here, it's all about snipping and cutting parts of the DNA, which alludes to cloning. And of course, this is what the film Us was really all about. Here's an article on golden scissors as well. Gene editing. 4 gene editing technologies that could replace CRISPR. Let's keep going with this montage. Now, she basically goes underground. She finds this secret door toward the end of the film that is basically inside of a hall of mirrors in a theme park. And earlier in her life, this is when she met basically herself. She met her doppelganger. She met her clone in this hall of mirrors while she was at a theme park with her family. And so she goes back as an adult to basically face her demons, so to speak. She finds the secret door leading to this cloning facility. And she discovers that the clones were underground to basically control the other half of themselves that were above ground. Let's watch. Here you see the rabbits, obviously symbolizing cloning, right?
The soul remains one, shared by two, like puppets. They created the tethered so they could use them to control the ones above. I believe they figured out how to make a copy of the body, but not the soul. But they failed, and they abandoned the tethered. For generations, the tethered continued without direction. They all went mad down here. And then there was us.
So here they're demonstrating the tethered, how below and above the same thing's happening. Now the twist of this film that I don't think really anyone really got to the bottom of in the decodes that I've seen is that at the end you realize that this little girl, which is the older woman, that they actually switched out in the Hall of Mirrors. So the dark side girl replaced the girl at the top of the surface of, on above ground. She replaces her. She pulls the girl into her world and flip-flops into the other world. Now this is important because this goes to show you the connection between clones, doppelgangers, twins, whatever you have, whatever you want to call it. This demonstrates the truth about this. And later in the show, we're going to get into biblical clones. But I wanted to open the show with the symbology that we see, or symbols that we see, running throughout the themes of entertainment media. Let's keep playing this. So the clones, the dark side clones, the below ground clones, start this human chain. And it all links back to Hands Across America, which was an event that took place in May of 1986.
Oh, you could have taken me with you. Oh, you could have taken me with you.
There you see it on her t-shirt, Hands Across America, which of course is the paper cutout. And this is where the girl switches out. She's wearing a Michael Jackson Thriller t-shirt. So we go from Hands Across America to Michael Jackson's Thriller, which I think all happened in the same year or right around that time frame. And so what is up with this Hands Across America? Now, there were a lot of theories on why they included this in the film Us, a film about clones below ground that are tethered to humanity above ground. There were lots of theories, but I think we got down to the bottom of this because there was a song about Hands Across America. And the song actually includes some clues as to what's really going on with the clones. Here are the lyrics to the song Hands Across America. And I believe it was foreshadowing the hive mind. These were basically early hive mind drills. And the whole point of this Hands Across America thing was to raise money for the homeless by joining everyone's hands together, right? Sorry for the loading of the pages here. Everybody was going to join their hands together from sea to shining sea to basically help the homeless. Let me blow this up. Here are the lyrics from Hands Across America. United we fall, hands across the land I love. United we stand, hands across America. Mother and father, daughter and son. Learn to live as one. I cannot stop thinking again and again how the heart of a stranger beats the same as a friend. Here's your cloning reference here. Both hearts beating the same. Learn to love each other. The message is good here, obviously. But there's something beneath the surface with this stuff. And it says, see those people over there? They are my brother and sister. When they laugh, I laugh. Cloning. This is exactly what we saw play out in the film Us. When one person would laugh, the other person would laugh. When one person would cry, the other person would cry. When one person would feel pain, the other person would feel pain. When they cry, I cry. When they need, I'll be there by their side. We are the river of hope that runs through the valley of fear. This is like the valley of the shadow of death mentioned in the Bible, right? And there's a lady whose smile shines upon us, saying all is welcome here. See the man over there? He's my brother. When he laughs, I laugh. And this just goes on and on and on about the tethering between humanity, which again sounds like a good thing. But there's something beneath the surface. Now I want you to look at some of the celebrities that were on the list in this Hands Across America. And here you see that there are a lot of people, not a lot, but a good significant portion of the people that were involved in this, that were celebrities, that were later accused of hurting children. Scott Baio's in here. You can look all these up. For the sake of time, we're not going to pull up their history and the accusations made against these people. I'm simply making a point that there is a contingent of people amongst the Hands Across America celebrities greater than the normal ratio of offenders, okay, that were involved in this. Scott Baio, Michael Jackson, David Copperfield, who actually rode on the Lolita Express. Bill Clinton is in here as well, rode on the Lolita Express. Now here's where things get strange, because the guy who put together Hands Across America, his name is Ken Cragen. This is his Wikipedia page here. And Ken Cragen is basically a consultant for the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, NASA. Okay? It says it right here in his Wikipedia page. So I dug into this. I'm like, what would a guy like this, who was involved in like Live Aid and Hands Across America, put together all these different things, which after costs, many of these brought in almost only half of what the monies that went to the poor. Okay, so basically they brought in 25 million and only like 15 million of it went to the poor after costs. Now I understand these things cost money to promote, but you got to ask yourself, were there some people who put this together that made money off of this? Okay, I don't know that, but why is Ken Cragen, a guy who's involved in music, consulting for the Jet Propulsion Laboratory? Why is that? Well, I think we have some clues as to why that may be the case. Here in his own interview, he outs several of the people involved as consultants with the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. A lot of what I do, although I'm pretty tied up in a couple of things that are taking all my contacts, this is Ken Cragen talking, is connect people a lot. The Jet Propulsion Laboratory calls me and wants me to work on the Juno spacecraft to Jupiter. Now, what could they possibly want with a guy who's involved in music and promoting music events? What could they possibly want with him to put together a spacecraft to Jupiter? He says he's putting music and artists with the project and stuff. I realize my two passions, space, which is one, and music, are coming together on this project. I jumped into it. The first call I make is Herbie Hancock. He gets Pharrell Williams and Bono. We're all now meeting at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Those are the kinds of things that make you feel awfully good about what you can do. You gotta wonder what they're working on now. There's no information on what they're working on. It just says that all these people are consulting with the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and these are people involved with music. Remember, Herbie Hancock was the sound guy. Remember, he was really good at putting together sound. Okay? Bono, like, what are they doing over there? I'd like to know. So I thought this was strange. And now we have a bigger, more complete picture. And if anyone knows what their role is at NASA, please chime in the chat, because we'd like to know if you know what this is all about. So, again, I asked the question, are doppelgangers real? Well, they were real in the Bible. At least up until the flood, we had something very peculiar happen. Every descendant on the dark side are accounted for in perfect reflection on the light side. Here are the two generations. There were 7, and there are 7 mirrored on the other side. 2 bloodlines. And if you include Noah in that, that's 8. So we have 8 and 8. Now I'm going to do a little graphic here, and I'm going to show you something very peculiar. So we know that Noah down here at the bottom basically reclaimed the pure blood. This was like a choke point of sorts. Okay? This is the choke point where the pureness that Adam had was choked back down to Noah. There is a reshifting of power and balance. And so I'm going to connect the two lines so that you can see that this is not anything that anyone is making up. So we've got Cain and Canaan. We've got Enoch and Enoch. And we're going to take a closer look at some of these people. We're all familiar with the people on the light side, but we're going to look at the dark side version of these people. Irad is Jared. Mehujael is this guy. Methusael is Methuselah. Lamech is Lamech. Right? And that's pretty much it. Now, at the top is Adam. Here, put a circle around him. So, we have these doppelgangers, right? These two bloodlines. Now, I want you to look at these lines here. And if you can think outside the box, you will see that they resemble eyes squinting or being closed in the middle here. And in the forehead, with the circle around it, is Adam, the true bloodline. Adam and the thorns of Genesis. Remember, it's talked about him toiling in the thorns and thistles. That was the curse that was upon Adam. And then it completed full circle with Christ from the pure bloodline of Adam/Noah, who would wear the thorns also on his head. So, who is Christ? He is in the pineal position between the two thieves, which we call your eyes. So, in this graphic, God reclaims the pure bloodline at the end of all time, right? The battle is won against the dark bloodline. The thieves, the two eyes, are closed. As you see the eyes squinting here in the middle. And the true bloodline back to the pineal position, the center where Christ was crucified, between the two thieves. They are no longer stealing the salvation, which is what thieves do, right? Now, there's something else interesting here, but before we get into that, here's Enoch, son of Cain. He was the father of Irad. He arrived in the land of Nod, to which he was evicted by the Lord as his punishment for murdering his brother Abel. Now, Enoch was the name of actually the first city mentioned in the Bible. They even say here, do not confuse Enoch, son of Jared, to whom the authorship of the book of Enoch is ascribed. A lot of people get confused about this. They say Enoch was evil. Well, there was one Enoch that was evil. Here's Lamech, descendant of Cain. This is the dark side Lamech. 6th generation descendant of Cain. His father was Methusael, and he was responsible for Song of the Sword. They're saying he was the first polygamist mentioned in the Bible, taking 2 wives, Ada and Zillah. There's always a dark side known for something that they did that is dark. Now, there was even 2 Naamas in the Bible. Here's one Naamah. She was actually married to Ham. And you're looking at this going, that's not Naamah. Well, if you can actually see the letters of Naamah within the word Nael Tamauk. Naama. Naamah. And, of course, she married Ham, boarded the ark, but she was from Canaan. she was from the Cain bloodline. You see her listed here. And she married Ham. Now there was also a pure Naamah, and she was married to Noah. Now, the documentation that we have about Noah's wife, Naamah, which of course she was pure, it comes from the book of Jasher. And it says that through Naamah, Noah fathered both Japheth and Shem, who were also pure, because their mother was pure. But the book of Joshua makes no mention of who Ham's mother was, which was Noah's third son. We don't know who she was, but we know that she was pure. So there are two Naamahs, doppelganger Naamahs. Now, this post goes into a little bit of detail. It says here, I will however point out that it is only Noah who is affirmed in Scripture as being pure in his generations. This declaration leaves up for debate as to whether the other members of the family said to be on board with him were clean in similar aspect. With that in mind, let me now bring forth the story of Noah and his wife Naamah, cited in the book of Jasher. According to it, the seed of promise was propagated through Noah's wife Naamah, the daughter of Enoch. She is said to have been the mother of Shem. Here's the documentation. He chose Naamah, the daughter of Enoch, and she was 580 years old, and Naamah conceived and bare a son, and he called him Japheth. She conceived again and bare a son, called him Shem. And Noah was 502 years old when Naamah bare Shem. And as you can see here, the other thing that must be considered is whether Naamah existed in both seed lines, that of Adam and Cain, as there seems to be repeated usage of names for both sides. And it says here in Jasher that there was no mention of who Ham's father or mother was. The author goes on and says, I believe there is a Naamah from both lines, from the lineages in Genesis 4 and 5, only lists Naamah in Cain's line as the daughter of Lamech and twin sister of Tubal-Cain. I believe this verse, he chose Naamah the daughter of Enoch, infers that there is a Naamah incorporated into the line of Adam, which is missing from the genealogical record of Genesis 5. So, Ham, by marrying a Canaanite, allowed the Canaanite bloodline to survive the flood. So it's no wonder that evil thrived through his line, because from him came Egypt, which was Mizraim. Mizraim was the son of Ham. And Cush, who was the father of Nimrod, who built the Tower of Babel, of course, in defiance of God. So all this evil came through the bloodline of Ham because of his marriage to the Canaanite. And after the flood, giants once again roamed the earth. It's said that Nimrod was of giant stature. And of course we know that the Egyptians, which descended from Mizraim, they also were giants, because you see them depicted in the hieroglyphs 2 and 3 times the size of the people they ruled over. So this is how the elite serpent bloodline survived until the present day. We live under Egypt. We live under Mizraim. The world is run by pharaohs, and we've shown you that. Obelisks throughout the world, alignments, everything pointing back to Egypt worship. Now here's where things get interesting, because there's a thing called astronomical precession. And what that means is, because of the, whatever you want to call it, we don't really know if the Earth's tilted, but there's some mechanism in place, a wobble of sorts, that moves the night sky and holds one particular constellation dominant in the east for 2,000-year periods of time. So every 2,000 years, there's a new dominant constellation on the horizon. Okay? This is proven. It's been known about. You can measure it, actually. You can go into Stellarium and you can go back in time and see the gradual shifting of the dominant constellation in the sky. This is astronomy. This isn't astrology we're talking about here, okay? But you can draw certain conclusions about what happened in the night sky during that 2,000-year period, because it seems to dovetail in with events that happen in history very, very closely. In fact, it dovetails with biblical events. We've done videos on this going into much deeper depth, comparing biblical events to the dominant constellations in the sky, and the comparisons are uncanny. So at the dawn of time, Gemini was dominant in the sky. Those are the twins, which is exactly what we're talking about. Doppelgangers, twins. If you look here, just after Gemini was dominant in the sky, we had Taurus, the bull. Now, Earth's history had just come out of Gemini at the dawn of creation, and it was entering Taurus on the horizon in about 4000 BC. And here you see, during that Earth age, some very telling things happen that relate directly to the bull. Okay, this is when bull worship began. Let's read here. Bull worshipping cults began to form in Assyria, Egypt, and Crete during this mythological age. The ankh, which is the thoracic vertebrae of the bull, which is the vertebrae in your spine that is near your heart. That's what they call it, the thoracic vertebrae. And that vertebrae is shaped like an ankh, which is this shape here. That's what the bone looks like that surrounds the spinal cord of the bull, and also the same is true in the human body. Then they started worshiping Apis, the bull deity. There's also the sacrum, which is one of the last bones in the spine, and that is very closely resembles the Jed, D-J-E-D. And this is not me saying this. This is established that this is what they were worshiping. The sacrum of the bull, the Jed, which is the bottom of the spine. And there's a whole thing that goes into the Jedi and comparing that to the Jed, and we did videos on that as well. So let's move on here, because it says worship of Apis, the bull deity, the most important of the sacred animals in Egypt. And that's exactly what happened. Egypt worshipped the bull. So as we're coming into the age of Taurus, this is when all this bull worship began in Egypt. You see bulls all throughout the hieroglyphs in Egypt. They worship the bull. Okay? This was said to be instituted during the second dynasty of the early dynastic period of Egypt, worshipped in the Memphis region. When Moses was said to have descended from the mountain with the Ten Commandments, some of the people were followers of worshiping a golden bull calf. So this lines up exactly to what was going on historically. We also had Marduk and Taroktani, whoever they are. So this is what was going on during the age of Taurus. Now, I think we've got some more on this video that I wanted to show you guys. This montage, because I started watching the sequel to a film about a cult.
Maybe you have split personalities and you're leaving each other gifts and shit for you to find.
A film, a membrane, a layer. Then behind it is another and another and another.
Now, this film was all about this cult up in the hills of Southern California. And basically these guys, this guy right here is addicted to meth. And the other guy you saw, his friend, came to save him, this guy. And so he chains him to the wall as he's detoxing. But the guy really having the trip is the guy who came to save him, because he starts finding all this crazy stuff. Film which seems to show the future before things have even happened yet. So they find these films, reels of film, CDs, all this different kind of media on what we know as cellulose, right? This is what they originally put movie reels on, is this stuff called cellulose, which is supposed to be not natural to Earth's environment. There's studies out there that they've found cellulose outside of this place. So they put this stuff on cellulose, which are these reels, which is a spiral, which is a portal, a gate. And they surmise that somehow their thoughts are being collected on these reels, somehow. And through some mechanism, they're being shown the future through the reels. Now, what I wanted you to notice is this guy has a mirror up, and he's reflecting it into infinity. He's talking about film, and that we exist in these layers or shells of time. Now, I don't know about all that, but that's what they're showing here, okay? Maybe they want us to believe that, and maybe it's not true. I don't believe in multiverses. I believe there's one universe, but there is something such as that is a dark side of us. Now listen, watch this part, because on the wall you see Jesus crucified, right? And you see the nails in the cross, but the cross is made out of a tree. It's made out of wood. And you know, this was a portal. When he sacrificed himself, he opened a narrow gate for those who believe. All right? So think of it like that. A portal was opened. Let's keep watching here.
Mike, the government issues each and every one of us a shadow. Billy and Micah. A shadow. Billy and a shadow. Billy and a shadow. Billy and a shadow. Billy and.
So there he says that the government issues each and every one of us a shadow man. Okay, and I looked that up in the script to make sure that's what he said. And this could go back to what we started this discussion at. And that is that the government was running experiments. The military was running experiments on blood samples they collected in Texas. Why did the Armed Forces DNA Identification Laboratory want the DNA of infants when the stated purpose of the Armed Forces DNA Identification Laboratory was to identify soldiers and catalog their DNA? What does soldier DNA have to do with infant DNA? Why did they want it? We also know that Texas A&M, which was blood banking many of these cards that were taken from these children, we know that they were working on cloning during those years. I really think we're onto something with this, but the trail's gone cold. Is there a possibility you could run into your biblical doppelganger? What does all this mean? Is this happening on a spiritual level? And also a dark side level where these people in power are trying to figure out how this works, how this doppelganger works, and the invisible thread and connection between the two? Are these people using golden scissors to splice together and create life, but life that is dead inside with no spirit? A doppelganger. So I always wonder, okay, you know, you've got these biblical patriarchs, antediluvian, before the flood. You've got this crossover coming out of the age of Gemini, right? The age of twins. This was the dawn of creation. And you got these names that are almost exactly the same, but from two different bloodlines. The 88. The first 8 generations are like copies of one another. What does that mean? That's not an accident. From Adam to Noah, an identical copy, but a dark side version of that copy. The two bloodlines. I believe that God was showing us that this exists, and that we have a dark side version of us that is on the other side of the bloodline. Okay? And all of this is meant to remind us of the original split in the bloodline, which happened at Cain. That's where the bloodline split. And Cain's talking to God, and he says, God, am I my brother's keeper? What did that statement really mean? Does that mean, is Abel really my brother? It's hard to find out what the context of something is and what the true interpretation of it is when you're dealing with languages changing over, right? But if you really think about it, with everything we just discussed about these bloodlines, when Cain asked God, am I my brother's keeper, was that a genetic question? I think it was. And what did God say to Cain? He said, even though sin is crouching at the door. Why would he tell Cain that? Because Cain was different. Sin is crouching at the door for him. He goes, but if you do well, if you do good, you can get out of it. It's all about choices. This is why I tell you guys, we do all this talking about the two bloodlines. People think, oh, you're condemning the dark side bloodline. No, I'm not. They have a chance at salvation as well. They were the Gentiles. The Jews were the pure bloodline, and I'm not talking about today's Jews. I'm talking about the ancient Jews, which were different people. They were the pure bloodline. They did not mix with the Canaanites. And so we had this purity of the bloodlines that was maintained up until a certain point in history to preserve the bloodline of Christ. Cain had a choice, and what was it? Anyone who hurt Cain would be cursed, what was it, 77 times? I think we know why that number was chosen now. Going back to this image. 77 times. Hey, we have 7 links here. Adam, Cain, Enoch, Irad, Mehujael, Methusael, and Lamech. If you include Noah, that's 8. So now maybe we know what this meant. Why? Because God has compassion. He could have eradicated this bloodline. Something happened here. Something happened. I believe this is the serpent seed bloodline, which again survived the flood through Naamah marrying Ham. That's why we had giants after the flood, mentioned all throughout. Og of Bashan, he had a 13-foot long bed. We had the Philistine, Goliath was a giant. Of course, we had Nimrod, who was of great stature. So there's something weird going on here.